afternoon, everybody. I'm pleased to welcome everyone to our weekly webinar on behalf of the Sri Lanka Export Development Board. This is our 7th webinar. The topic today is rethinking exports in 4 perspectives. To tell you about the agenda, there will be 2 sessions for the webinar. First, our resource person will make the PowerPoint presentation, which will take about 40 minutes. Then we can go for Q&A session. Participants can send in their questions using the Q&A option available in the Zoom application. So there will be about 15 minutes for us to get clarifications, more information of the given topic. So now I would like to introduce our resource person for the webinar on rethinking exports in 4 perspectives. None other than Mr. Kushan Kodituwakku, the Managing Director of Orange Electric, Sri Lanka's market leader and largest manufacturer of electrical wiring accessories. Orange Electric is a 100% Sri Lankan-owned company, having regional offices in Australia, Singapore, India, Dubai, UK, and USA. So the company has over 7,000 personnel across 5 continents with more than 15 nationalities. Kushan is a graduate in industrial engineering from the University of New Haven, USA. Kushan is passionate about R&D to design and produce cutting-edge, high-quality products locally for a global market. With that introduction, I would like to give floor to Mr. Kodituwakku to do his presentation. Then we can go for the live Q&A session. So over to you, Mr. Kodituwakku.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Anoma. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes, we can see.
All right, very good. Good afternoon. Today, I would like to inspire you to rethink of exports in 4 different perspectives. Do you know the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result each time. So let us relook at our strategies to see if we can change the results. But before we get started into the main topic, let me give a brief introduction about myself. I'm a graduate. I graduated as an industrial engineer. I had to take over the reins of the company at the age of 22 when my father passed away in 1995. With that, I became a 3rd generation entrepreneur. I was able to grow the company from being a $1 million company to a $100 million company. So it worked out to be a 100-fold growth. What do we do? We are Orange Corporation. We are mostly known for our manufacturing in electrical accessories under our trade name Orange Electric. But we are also one of the largest employers in the IT industry. We employ around 6,000 people. We are among the largest AI service providers in the world for autonomous driving vehicles, for self-driving cars. So our vision is to be a US $1 billion Sri Lankan multinational company. Very early on, we set a target to be $1 billion so that we can bring that amount of foreign exchange to Sri Lanka. So if I can take this opportunity to inspire all of you and 1,000 other companies to go on this journey, and we might be able to change the destiny of our country if we were to get to our targets. But our journey began 3 generations ago. My grandfather from Mathura became an entrepreneur and later established his business in Colombo and grew the business from $0 to $10,000. My father took that business and grew that nationally and grew from $10,000 to $1 million. Then in 1995, I took over my father's business and grew it 100-fold to $100 million and to be present in 5 continents. And I plan to do another 10-fold growth before my time is up to hit $1 billion goal. And if I fail, hopefully our next generation will have a go at it. So what I wanted to emphasize is that it took 3 generations for us to get to where we are today. I doubt my grandfather ever envisaged that his startup transporting oranges would end up operating in 5 continents as Orange Electric today. So there's a very interesting saying from Bill Gates. Most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. I want to emphasize, we really underestimate what we can do in 10 years time. So my take is that business is not a sprint, it's a marathon, and we are here for the long haul. So let us now get into our main topic, rethinking exports in 4 perspectives. All right, so basically this is the product matrix that you have seen many times before. We have existing products to existing markets, new products to existing markets, existing products to new markets, and new products to new markets. So these are the 4 perspectives I would like to emphasize and talk through today, and how we can change how we look at our exports from these 4 perspectives. So if you go back, think about, where your business is currently on these 4 perspectives. Are you playing in the existing products to existing markets? Are you playing in existing products to new markets? Or what is your strategy? Are you operating in one quadrant or in multiple quadrants? So let's take the first quadrant, existing products, existing markets. So this is where boosting local manufacturers to increase local market share. Now, with the current COVID situation, the government enforced a lot of import restrictions, and that helped local manufacturers to increase our local market share. Even for us, this was a blessing in disguise. So, but as manufacturers, we also have a huge obligation towards the public and the country. We should not take it for granted. Our quality must improve. We must be competitive like any other product that is imported, and we have to increase our capacity so that we don't starve the market, we don't give the customers what the market needs. So we should not take this for granted. Now, what we should do is that how do we improve quality? training and development. So we need to spend money on training and development of our employees, improve our research and development so that can make us more competitive. And also we need the infrastructure, so that will improve our capacity. So sometime back, government enforced double depreciation for when you start investing on R&D and building infrastructure. So something like that from the government will help manufacturers to improve their own qualities, competitiveness, and capacity, and we must do that. We should not take this for granted. So let's go to the next quadrant: new products, existing market. So this is all about import substitution. Now again, there's a lot of products are being restricted for imports, and a lot of people are now moving into starting with simple assembly. So I know some people who are trying to assemble TVs, to assemble scooters. So this is really helping local industry to start looking at new ways of overcoming these obstacles in a betterment for the country. But we don't know for how long the government will keep these restrictions, and later if they were to change, I would encourage government to look at having like a 4-tier import tariff scheme where 40%, I mean these numbers can change, I mean these are my rough guesstimates, but 40% duty for complete imports, 30% for SKD, semi-knockdown assembly, 15% duty if they bring it completely knocked down, and 5% if they start manufacturing. So there is a gradual process and a way where somebody can start with the SKD assembly and then gradually move into manufacturing. Now this will be also a good opportunity for traders to become manufacturers. And we must identify what products we should go for import substitution. And how can we make somebody move into manufacturing? Because if they don't have the mindset, so we need to work and create that environment for somebody to easily get into manufacturing. So today, sometimes it's very difficult for getting into manufacturing because you need to start looking at land. By the time you buy the land, get the building permits, by the time we finish building, you don't have any money to invest on machinery. So what if we can have, or the government invest on pre-built industrial zones, like what they have in Dubai, where you go, pay the rent, get the keys, and you are ready to start. So if we have infrastructure built, pre-built infrastructure like this, I think a lot of people, especially a lot of traders, would probably be encouraged to getting into manufacturing. And even for us who are already in manufacturing, it will be an easy task to move to a new product or a new area. So existing products, new markets. So this is where you're boosting local manufacturers to increase exports. Now, we need to look at, when we're trying to export products to different countries, and if we don't really know what the standards that they use in those countries, it becomes very hard for us because the quality that we think we have may not be suitable for the countries that we are trying to export. So we have to make sure we need to have help to improve our quality, packaging, price, our competitiveness, and we should have a unique selling proposition for the products that we manufacture here. So if we can get help from EDB to bring in some export marketing specialists, especially from foreign countries, consultants, to help us to improve this. I mean, I can relate to a situation long time back for us, when EDB once bought a consultant to improve the electronic industry in Sri Lanka. And this consultant came in, and one thing that he found was that Sri Lanka didn't have good components for people to start making electronic products, especially in the universities, to start doing prototypes, small volume purchasing. They didn't have good quality parts. So this consultant select us for some reason that we should be a supplier for electronic components, and he went and consulted to other companies to make products. And EDB organized a delegation for us to go to UK to find these suppliers. And Mr. Maldini from EDB led this expedition, and we found a good supplier called Farnell, and till today we are supplying components through them. But what I'm trying to say is that we were an electrical company at that time, and that got us to get into electronic components. From electronic components, we moved into IT, and now today to becoming one of the largest AI service providers in the world. So what that small step that we took with EDB long time back today made us to where we are today, getting into new areas. So sometimes bringing these consultants can really help give seeing the benefits of it. And another point that I would like to highlight is, what if EDB can create a digital market space for Sri Lankan products to be available in 195 countries like Amazon, eBay, for made in Sri Lanka products. So if you have a platform like today after COVID, I mean, that showed that a lot of people are going to start doing shopping and purchasing, buying from home, and having a digital platform can really help Sri Lankan products to be exported, and there is a market space created for lots of people who may not have the ability to go and market their products overseas. So let's move to our next segment, new products, new markets. This is a very interesting area for Sri Lankan value addition. So I'm looking at, producing new products utilizing local raw materials. Now we've got a lot of local raw materials which are untapped at the moment for value addition for Sri Lanka. We got local materials like graphite, silica, ilmenite, quartz. So with graphite, they are making graphene, and that has started to make batteries and things like that. So the next generation of batteries will use graphene. So same way, from mineral sand, we can get silica. From quartz, I mean, majority of the LCD screens are made out of quartz, and probably these quartz are coming from Sri Lanka. But the issue is, it's not easy for a Sri Lankan company just to start mining. So instead of government running institutions or industries like, the Devasanstava and all these, they should start probably getting into mining operations. And if they can do the first level of raw material or the first level of conversion, then companies can take that raw material and start making products. Because right now, whatever we are selling for like $10 a kilo, when you do the first level of conversion, it turns into $1,000 a kilo. So there's a huge amount of value addition that takes place, and we are just wasting our mineral resources by just exporting just as just raw materials at very, very low prices. So we should really look at first level and second level conversions taking place in Sri Lanka. So let's recap. So the 4 quadrants. We have the first quadrant, boosting local manufacturing. so that your market share will increase within Sri Lanka. Then we look at growing that business with import substitution. And then once you have a larger product portfolio, then we look at boosting our exports. But boosting exports do have some challenges right now, because all countries are now looking at import substitutions like what we are trying to do in Sri Lanka. So there are challenges, so that we have to have unique selling propositions, and products have to be absolutely fantastic so that we can break through these barriers. And then of course new products with local raw materials, which will add long-term value addition for Sri Lanka than just assembling in our country. So we might have challenges also from the government saying, your government don't have money to invest onto some of these infrastructure. People are resistant to change. But if we were to break through these barriers, I'm sure we can change the game. So will we end up doing the same thing again and again, expecting different results each time? Or can we change everything and define our future? So thank you very much. I hope I inspired you to look at these 4 perspectives in a different way, and that could help you re-strategize your business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kodituwakku, for that presentation. So participants can send in their questions to get more clarifications on the points Mr. Kodituwakku has made. From the points we received up to now, I would like to pose this question. Nalika Kodikara would like to know what kind of obstacles have come across when entering to Singapore market. That is about your company experience.
Yeah, so Singapore has been a lot of challenges because it has been a very established market. So a lot of people didn't really want to change. We struggled for a long time to get into the market because they already have very established suppliers, and everybody was very comfortable with what they are getting because it's a mature market. So breaking into that, it took a long time. We had to wait till somebody collapses, somebody moves out for us to move. And the success came when we were there for a long time. People start recognizing, you kept knocking on the door so many times, and then finally they started to think, okay, you're here for the long haul. So that was one of the ways that we broke in. And another way that we went in was that we went and bought a company in Singapore that was making a product. And so they already had an existing customer base, and that was very helpful for us to move into the market.
Okay, the next question is, how do you position yourself in terms of competitiveness with other electrical consumable manufacturers like Korea and China?
All right, so the history of us, we got into electrical manufacturing by having a joint venture with an Australian company long time back called Clipsal. So our heritage was not something with comparison with with Chinese products, but more from a European perspective. So the quality and the design and the characteristics of our products is more of a European standard. So that gave us a very unique perspective where you have the European products positioned at one level and you have the Chinese products positioned, and we were positioned in between. So we were giving European quality probably about 10% less than the European prices, because we were able to benefit from the cost reductions of local manufacturing, but our raw material costs are the same from a European product, because we both use same materials. Like for example, we buy materials from Bayer or Mitsubishi. All the European product companies are also buying from the same sources. So the product raw materials are the same. So the price of raw materials are the same. Only advantage that we have is our labor cost is cheaper. Apart from that, our positioning, the product quality has always been in the same level of a European product.
Right. Another question which I can select is what are the markets which have less restrictions on imports? According to your experience having overseas markets, you have offices in several markets. So can you answer that question? What are the markets which have less restriction on imports?
All right, some of the easy markets or markets that we have really done really well are small countries like, say, Maldives, Seychelles. We've also done well in Pakistan, and that could probably be well because of our distributor. So we have a very strong distributor in Pakistan that opened up a huge market. But each market has their own characteristics. So one thing that we found is, when we started to export, we really didn't have a blueprint of really finding out what's the right method of doing. So we tried different ways in different countries. And what we found, for example, now in Dubai, the quality that we set in Sri Lanka is it's too competitive for our products, some of our products, to be in Dubai market. So it's very surprising. Sometimes we think Dubai market has the highest quality products, but that is not the case. I think it's mostly to do with, how the relationships that you build with the projects. But if you look at from the distribution market in the dealer networks, a lot of Chinese products. So when we first started going into Dubai, it was always a huge problem with prices. Then what we did was we started looking at, let's buy from China and sell in Dubai under our brand. And that became very successful. So sometimes what happens is, in each market, you need to look at how do you first get into the market. And once people once you created the network, then when we started moving products made in Sri Lanka, people had a very high standard because they can now see the difference in the quality, and you gradually move. So earlier we were saying, okay, only products made in Sri Lanka we will export. And then it was taking a long time. Then we rechanged our strategy. Let's look at, why can't we buy like in India? We bought in India and sold in India. So that started getting access into the networks. So, so you can't really go and in the beginning, we spend a lot of time having a very hard head saying, okay, everything has to come from Sri Lanka. And the portfolio of products that we have in Sri Lanka is not the same of the products what other countries also want. So their portfolios were different. So we started sourcing some product and built the network and then started making those products, because once you had the volumes, and substitute and got into the markets.
Okay, I remember you mentioning during some time back about acquisitions. Is it the thing you are referring?
Acquisitions also helped us to get into markets like, say, for example, in the US market, we bought a company, a 20-year-old company that the owners wanted to retire, and we bought that, and that got us into to the US market. And then the products that they sell, we started manufacturing in Sri Lanka. So first we bought a company and they were buying products mainly from Taiwan, because in the US they can't sell any Chinese products, and the company that we bought also supplies to the US military all these datacom products. Even the White House was a customer. So Mr. Trump's phone calls are done through our datacom products in the US. And then we also were able to get into accounts like Google. But if we really went as a Sri Lankan company, I mean, we didn't even, now after the acquisition, we didn't even announce that the company was owned by a foreign company, because we feared that by really announcing that, people may stop buying the brand. So we still go as a US company, but it helped us to sell those products in our countries, because when we say earlier, when we said orange and this is a Sri Lankan product, people would look at, you know, you don't have the technology, or how would a Sri Lankan company have technologies for networking products, because people don't know Sri Lanka for technology. But then when we bring a US product, everybody accepts it. So that really helps, having a US brand, but it's owned by Sri Lanka.
Right. Since you have talked about Dubai, can you answer this? Tell us more about Dubai inbuilt industrial zones. Any experience on those?
Yes. I mean, I remember we went to Sharjah Free Zone. I landed that morning and drove straight into the zone, and we signed the documents, made the payment. By 12 o'clock, we had the keys to the warehouse. So we were ready to start operations by afternoon. So this, I believe, will be a game changer if Sri Lanka were to do this. So that lots of people from other countries will also come and set up manufacturing. And it also helps local companies to go and establish manufacturing very fast, because, I mean, you have all these regulations and all the bureaucracies of, you know, setting up, you know, buying land, putting up buildings. So by the time you finish all that, people are very tired. So I think that should not be what an entrepreneur should be doing. That's not the skill of an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur's skill is, you know, start the business. So you don't have to go and tackle with all these permits and all that kind of stuff.
The next question is Mr. Sanjeeva Bandara. What are the key constraints in African markets to expand your products?
I'm sorry?
What are the key constraints in African markets to expand your products? African market.
Yeah. So so when we were trying a lot of African markets, they're giving a lot of incentives for you to come and set up manufacturing. But, you know, we first wanted to establish certain level of numbers in Africa before we go into manufacturing. But a lot of every time you go and talk with the people, they say, okay, make it in Africa, then we will support it. So that's why we went and started with the outer rims of Africa with Seychelles and Mauritius markets. And we base some people in Seychelles. And then from there, we now export to Kenya, and we start Kenya, Tanzania, and places like that. So again, it's a good market, for quality products. You just need to go and work your way through. And there's a lot of Sri Lankans who have actually gone and established themselves very well in African markets. So you can also get help from a lot of Sri Lankans over there as well. So that's how we're having a lot of support from Sri Lankans who are living in Africa.
Let's go for the next question.
Yes.
Now that trade shows are on hold, do you see the use of data files of importers being of increased importance?
I'm sorry?
Since there is no trade shows anymore,
Yes.
they are temporary on hold, do you see the use of data files of importers being of increased importance?
Yeah, I would say we should start doing some digital marketing, and that's why we were looking at saying that if we can create a digital platform for made in Sri Lanka products, where people can access from anywhere in the world and start buying also. Like if you create a platform like Amazon, and then if we can promote that through our embassies in other countries, then it will be a simpler way for people to buy, and where we can, ship it through DHL and things like that.
Yeah, EDB also has a B2B platform. We are upgrading it at the from this year. Maybe our exporters can join that as well.
Yes.
And there is another question, Mr. Peshala Kumarage. Have you ventured into emerging markets like Bangladesh and Myanmar, and what's your approach?
Yes, we started Myanmar and Bangladesh. Unfortunately, with the COVID situation, we have to now pull back. Our people are back in Sri Lanka, so we don't know for how long this is going to last and whether we could start again. But yeah, so the Bangladesh and Myanmar markets are very interesting, very big. Again, we have to spend a lot of time developing, and they have a lot of restrictions in tariffs. A lot of people under declare, and that's how they do the business. So it becomes very difficult for a Sri Lankan company to operate over there, because for a local, they can under declare anything and do it. But for us, when we even try to bring it at the right declared prices, they still ask for money, saying that you have under invoiced, even at a higher price, because people there don't believe that anyone would bring without under declaring. So there are challenges like that. And in Myanmar also a lot of Chinese products, but people do want to have higher quality products. And in Myanmar, it's about the relationships that you will build with the people and the corporates over there.
Okay. And there's another question. When exporting sanitizers to US, you are required to have the FDA certification. Similarly, when exporting hardware products to Australia, are you required to have a similar certification of some kind?
Yes. So a lot of our electrical products has to comply to Australian standards, and we have to get those certifications. So certifications is very, very important to the Australian markets.
Okay. Mm. Maybe this is connected to your earlier reply. What are the countries you face the problem of declaring?
Yeah, so lots of Asian countries. So for those, what we do is we allow, I mean, we don't go and set it up. So in Bangladesh also what we did was we asked our distributors. Earlier we went and set up our office, and then we imported and tried to sell, but we couldn't match the prices because we had to pay a huge amount of duties. So we've told the distributors to order it directly from Sri Lanka, and so then they somehow clear it and then they sell it.
Okay. Where do you get your certifications? Are there facilities available in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, it depends on, like, say, we have certificates from Sri Lanka, we can get through SLS, but most of our certificates come from Singapore and also in Dubai for the UN certifications.
Another question from Sumitra Fernando. What are the barriers you faced up to now to entering the new markets?
It's about, how do you first go in, find your way around, because see, the thing is, when you say you're a Sri Lankan brand, people ask, is it cheaper than China? Because people don't really expect Sri Lanka to have a lot of engineering products. So their expectation is price to be cheaper than China. So one of the things that we do is we invite them to come and see our manufacturing, see our quality, we show them. So it becomes very difficult when it's a new brand, but you have to go in for these markets for the long haul. Overnight you will not be successful. So you need to have a lot of patience and work your way around. I mean, in Dubai, it took a long time for us to be successful. And it's also about your team over there. Do you get the right team employed who has the vision? Like, say, sometimes when you go in as a Sri Lankan company, the level of people that will join the company versus if you're a European company, you'll have another level of people coming in. So this is also very something that you need to keep in mind, that finding the right distributors who already has the network. And when you go with, and I mean, in the beginning, we went with small timers. The first opportunity that we got, we were all excited. Okay, this guy wants to sell our products. We went in, but they were too small. They couldn't really fight and penetrate into the market. So you need to capture these big fish, and to get the big fish, you need to have the relationships. You need to have people, employ people who have the access to those big distributors. So playing small does not really help. You need to, really focus and go big.
Right. Now, Urel Electricals has, other than the products you have, your company has, your group has services as well. So what is your opinion on Sri Lanka's competitive position as a service export destination?
Yeah, I can say that we are very, very competitive in the service side, especially on the IT services. I mean, 10 years ago, we started with 2 people on this AI services for driverless cars. and it kept growing, and today we have about 6,000 people. And the company that we were developing about 2 years ago was bought over by Intel, and Intel Corporation paid $14 billion for the company that we were working before. I mean, and they looked at going into other markets. They had an issue, especially during last year's April attacks, because only then they realized that their entire business is relying on just one country and one company, that's us. For Intel, that became a big highlight, and they wanted to go into other countries. And luckily, they couldn't find anybody who was as competitive and as high quality as we were. Because this is for driverless cars, we're doing a very, very unique position, because we are teaching machines. So the accuracy has to be very, very high. And so that level of expertise is here in Sri Lanka. So that's a very, very good position, and that brings a lot of foreign exchange to the country as well.
Yeah. Now another question is your opinion on FTAs. What are the countries do you think we need to have further integrations like FTAs to get raw materials at concessionary rates, and also to access larger markets for exports?
Yeah, I believe, like countries like Bangladesh and Myanmar, we should have free trade agreements, because there's a lot more products that we can export to countries like Bangladesh than they can supply to Sri Lanka. So it really helps Sri Lankan manufacturers to go to a much bigger market, so that we don't have to go through all these under-invoicing and everything in those countries as well. Then we become really, really competitive. So our products will be very competitive in countries like Bangladesh and also Myanmar.
Okay, there's a question on your brand name. How come the name Orange came to electrical items? Didn't you have any doubts that the name would go well with what you sell? Interesting.
Yeah, well, see, this all happened overnight. We were Clipsal Sri Lanka, and then when globally Clipsal was acquired by Schneider Electric, they acquired all the partners of Clipsal around the world, and luckily we had 51%, so they couldn't, we refused to sell our shares, and so they went to court and stopped us from using the Clipsal name. So we had, basically we changed from Clipsal to Orange in 48 hours. So we had a company, or the Clipsal, the parent company was called Orient Holdings. So Orient range became Orange. So I mean, we just had to figure something out, and in 48 hours we had to come up with a name. I remember that day in the morning we were doing the designs for the packaging, and in the evening printers were bringing the print proofs. And this happened on a Friday, and on Monday we went as Orange Electric.
Okay. Now from EDB side, you mentioned that bringing down foreign consultants made a lot of big difference to your company as well. So what would you, out of the programs we conduct, what are the other promotional programs you can recommend for the new companies, or your proposal to have? What are the what kind of other programs we have to carry out?
Yeah, so I think we need to help Sri Lankan companies to up their standard to be globally competitive. And sometimes being in Sri Lanka, being in an island, we are going to get exposed to a lot of things. So this is where we would need expertise to come in from different countries to help us understand what their needs are. And there are a lot of things, just being in those countries, you get exposed to a lot of things. And using those techniques, we can improve our internal capabilities. So that exposure is very, very much, I guess, needed. And sometimes a lot of our companies may not be looking at, how do we train our people, what kind of skills that we need to improve. I mean, like say during the COVID time, we signed up with this company called Coursera, and we had lots of courses that was available for all our employees to start learning. So they learn a lot of new things. So there's a lot of things that you can now learn. A lot of our employees were exposed to doing short world-class university courses from places like Harvard, Yale, Princeton, all these short courses, and that gave us a lot of exposure of how the digital markets and the world is changing to Industry 4.0. So today, I think what we need to keep in mind is Industry 4.0 is here, and that will disrupt a lot of businesses. And that's also an opportunity and a threat. The opportunity is no longer these big companies, the giants could no longer protect their markets. Small companies with new products, new ideas can break through. So that opportunity is there for all of us. It makes now selling through online markets, make it easy for you to access millions of customers all over the world. So we don't have to rely on all traditional distribution markets where you need distributors and relationships to sell. You can have access to consumers directly. So these are the ways that we should now start looking and capitalizing. 3D printing, these are going to change the world. And we need to start adapting into these technologies. So Industry 4.0 and artificial intelligence, AI, has to be incorporated into all our businesses. Everything what we should have should be built on this particular platform if we were to survive. This is a must. And if anybody disputes this, they will get obsolete in next 5 years.
Right. We have a few questions. Maybe we can get quick answers, although you have covered some of these. But just to finish the questions, I will ask these, try to give quick answers. One is, compared to other countries such as Thailand, Vietnam, Bangladesh, our manufacturing costs are higher. Our prices are not competitive enough to get into markets. How do we position ourselves in this kind of situations to get into the market?
Yeah, so one is our labor cost is lower than China. What we don't have is probably invested in the right machinery. So a lot of companies don't use the state-of-the-art machinery, whereas Thailand uses new machines, new technologies. So their product efficiency and quality is much more stable and higher than a lot of our products, is because of the equipments that we use. Because if you put the right raw materials and the machines, machine dependent products, the quality will be the same. And the price is going to be, I mean, our difference is our electricity cost could be higher, but then if you go with solar, in the long term, you will have free electricity after once you pay off for the solar, probably within 5 to 6 years. So then you will be competitive. So I think if you use the right equipment, there's no reason why we should not be competitive than any other country. I think the waste is taking place is on indirect work that we do, because we have a lot of back office work. We have a lot of supervisory things. So that's creating our overhead. Maybe a lot of government bureaucracy, we might have to file a lot of records, keep all that kind of stuff, making things more inefficient. Whereas in other countries, they can do all digital filing and things like that. So you don't need too many of indirect staff. So I think our killer in Sri Lanka is indirect staff.
Okay, one last question. What you think are the major obstacles for Sri Lankan exporters in Sri Lanka and outside? Last question.
Yeah. So I believe it's the processes. We have long archived processes that we have to do a simple task, and it's long. It takes time. Whereas we could have easily simplified in a lot of countries, developed countries. That's I remember we did a joint venture at one time with a British company. We were producing some electrical accessories. Similar size company. At that time, accounts department, we had 16 or 22 people. And in their company, there was only 2 people. So we were trying to figure out, why so many people we have to employ, similar size, and they only have 2. It's about the processes, our documents, our tax systems. To have all this documentation, we need to have a lot of people. And they don't have that much of documentation. So it's much simpler processes. So if you really take the number of direct staff versus indirect, I think Sri Lanka would probably have one of the highest indirect staffs compared to a lot of countries.
Right. With that, I think our time is up. We can end the session. Before ending, I would like to thank Mr. Kushan Kodituwakku for very informative presentation and also the discussion. I think our participants find it very interesting, a lot of questions. And you have answered those. Maybe your experience as a exporter in various countries helped to answer it practically. So I think our objective is also to educate our exporters, especially the SMEs, using the experience of our large exporters. So I think we have achieved that objective today. So again, thank you, Mr. Kodituwakku, for a very useful webinar. The webinar recording will be published on EDB Facebook page and YouTube channel. Anyone can watch that at their leisure. And also I would like to thank the participants for very lively discussion. With that, I end this webinar session today. Let's meet next Thursday at 4 o'clock through our weekly webinar session. And I wish everyone a pleasant evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anama.